Some offered him bits of food, which he refused, or, when they insisted, gave to someone else. Those who remained at a distance watched with round, pale eyes. He knew what they said about him, that he was mad, that spirits possessed him, that not even the Razak could defeat him in battle. Crossing the spine had been even harder than Roran expected. The only paths in the forest were game trails, which are too narrow, steep, and meandering for their group. As a result, the villagers were often forced to chop their way through the trees and underbrush, a painstaking task that everyone despised, not least because it made it easy for the Empire to track them. The one advantage to the situation was that the exercise restored Roran's injured shoulder to its previous level of strength, although he still had trouble lifting his arm at certain angles. Other hardships took their toll. A sudden storm trapped them on a bare pass high above the timberline. 3 people froze in the snow, Hilda, Brenna, and Nesbit, all of whom were quite old. That night was the first time Roran was convinced the entire village would die because they had followed him. Soon after, a boy broke his arm in a fall, and then Southwell drowned in a glacier stream.
Oh my god.
Wolves and bears preyed upon their livestock on a regular basis, ignoring the watchfires that the villagers lit once they were concealed from the Plankar Valley and Galbatorix's hated soldiers. Hunger clung to them like a relentless parasite, gnawing at their bellies, devouring their strength and sapping their will to continue. What a fun word to add into the middle of that. In the middle of words like parasite, gnawing, devouring, sapping. Bellies. What?
I don't know. I think of, like, in that context, I think of it as more of, like, how the word, like, underbelly makes me feel. Not like, my belly's full. You know? I think of it as more like a grotesque and, like, rats kind of a way.
Mm. And yet they survived, displaying the same obstinacy and fortitude that kept their ancestors in Plankar Valley despite famine, war, and pestilence. The people of Carvajal might take an age and a half to reach a decision, but once they did, nothing could deter them from their course. Now that they had reached Narda, a sense of hope and accomplishment permeated the camp. No one knew what would happen next, but the fact they had gotten so far gave them confidence. We won't be safe until we leave the Empire, thought Roran, and it's up to me to ensure that we aren't caught. I've become responsible for everyone here, a responsibility that he had embraced wholeheartedly because it allowed him to both protect the villagers from Galbatorix and pursue his goal of rescuing Katrina. It's been so long since she was captured. How can she still be alive? He shuddered and pushed the thoughts away. True madness awaited him if he allowed himself to brood over Katrina's fate.
She is dead.
I'm going to pull up a map, post-edit too. Yeah, Mortal's like, she did. So they were in Carvajal, and they made it to Narda.
Oh, fuck. And they had to traverse all those.
The spine, yeah. They couldn't go down to Theron's Ford, right? Didn't they say they crossed through the spine?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They couldn't go through Theron's Ford because it would have gone past the...
Yeah, so they fucking probably went north and then up into the spine and crossed through the spine. And now they're at Narda. So they still have to go from Narda.
Fuck.
Yeah.
That's so far. And that took them how long to get there?
Did it say?
I don't know. He said it just took them so long to get there. Also, I was just thinking, like, can a whole village just walk into Narda? Like, is that a thing that's not going to be suspicious? If a whole caravan of people just walk in?
It just says weeks of carrying, so...
Okay. So it could have been a month for all we know.
Yep.
Fuck. And to get that many people across all of that terrain probably was like a month. Are they just going to walk into Narda? I need to know your thoughts. I need you to respond to this.
You'll find out. They can't walk an entire village into Narda.
Okay, I just need you to acknowledge me, okay?
At dawn, Roran, Horst, Baldur, Loring's 3 sons, and Gertrude set out for Narda. They descended from the foothills to the town's main road, careful to stay hidden until they emerged onto the lane. Here in the lowlands, the air seemed thick to Roran. It felt as if he were trying to breathe underwater. Roran gripped the hammer at his belt as they approached Narda's gate. 2 soldiers guarded the opening. They examined Roran's group with hard eyes, lingering on their ragged clothes. Lingering on their ragged clothes. Then lowered their pole axes and barred the entrance. "Where do you come from?" asked the man on the right. He could not have been older than 25, but his hair was already pure white. Swelling his chest, Horse crossed his arms and said, "Roundabout's Tyrm, if it please you. What brings you here?" "Trade. We were sent by shopkeepers who want to buy goods directly from Narda instead of through the usual merchants." "That's so, eh? What goods?" When Horse faltered, Gertrude said, "Herbs and medicine on my part. Either been too old or moldy and spoiled. I have to procure a fresh supply. And my brothers and I," said Darman, "came to bargain with your cobblers. Shoes made in the northern style are fashionable in Drasleona and Urubain," he grimaced. "At least, they wore when we set out." Horse nodded with renewed confidence. "Aye, and I'm here to collect a shipment of ironwork for my master." "So you say. What about that one? What does he do?" asked the soldier, motioning toward Roran with his axe. "Pottery," said Roran. "Pottery?" "Pottery." "Why the hammer, then?" "How do you think the glaze on a bottle or jar gets cracked? Doesn't happen by itself, you know. You have to hit it." Roran returned the white-haired man's stare of disbelief with a blank expression, daring him to challenge the statement. The soldier grunted and ran his gaze over them. Be as that may, you don't look like tradesmen to me. Starved alley cats is more like it." "We had difficulty on the road," said Gertrude. "That I'd believe. If you came from Tyrm, where be your horses?" "We left them at our camp," supplied Hammond. He pointed south. Opposite where the rest of the villagers were actually hidden. "Don't have the coin to stay in town, eh?" With a scornful chuckle, the soldier raised his axe and gestured for his companion to do likewise. "All right, you can pass, but don't cause trouble or you'll be off to the stocks, or worse."
Fuck.
Once through the gate, Horse pulled Roran to the side of the street and growled in his ear. That was a fool thing to do, making up something as ridiculous as that. "Cracking the glaze? Do you want to fight? We can't—" He stopped as Gertrude plucked at his sleeve. "Look," murmured the healer. To the left of the entrance stood a 6-foot-wide message board with a narrow shingle roof to protect the yellowing parchment underneath. Half the board was devoted to official notices and proclamations. On the other half hung a block of posters displaying sketches of various criminals. Foremost among them was a drawing of Roran without a beard. Startled, Roran glanced around to make sure that no one in the street was close enough to compare his face to the illustration, then devoted his attention to the poster. He had expected the Empire to pursue them, but it was still a shock to encounter proof of it. Galbator's must be expending an enormous amount of resources trying to catch us. When they were in the spine, it was easy to forget that the outside world existed. "I bet posters of me are nailed up throughout the Empire." He grinned, glad that he had stopped shaving, and that he and the others had agreed to use false names while in Narda. A reward was inked at the bottom of the poster. Garrow never taught Roran and Aragon to read, but he did teach them their figures because, as he said, you have to know how much you own, what it's worth, and what you're paid for it so you don't get rooked by some two-faced knave. Thus, Roran could see that the Empire had offered 10,000 crowns for him, enough to live in comfort for several decades. In a perverse way, the size of the reward pleased him, giving him a sense of importance. Then his gaze drifted to the next poster in line. It was Aragon.
Fuck. Fucking fuck.
Roran's gut clenched as if he had been struck, and for a few seconds he forgot to breathe. He's alive. After his initial relief subsided, Roran felt his old anger about Aragon's role in Garrow's death and the destruction of their farm take its place, accompanied by a burning desire to know why the Empire was hunting Aragon. It must have something to do with that blue stone and the Razak's first visit to Carvajal. Once again, Roran wondered what kind of fiendish machinations he and the rest of Carvajal had become entangled in. Instead of a reward, Aragon's poster bore 2 lines of runes.
2 lines? Oh, I'm guessing like wanted, dead, or alive. I don't know.
Oh, maybe. What crime is he accused of? Roran asked Gertrude. The skin around Gertrude's eyes wrinkled as she squinted at the board. treason, the both of you. It says Galbatorix will bestow an earldom to whoever captures Aragon, but that those who try should take care because he's extremely dangerous. Roran blinked in astonishment. Aragon? It seemed inconceivable until Roran considered how he himself had changed in the past few weeks. The same blood runs in our veins. Who knows? Aragon may have accomplished as much or more than I have since he left. In a low voice, Baldur said, killing Galbatorix's men and defying the Razak only earns you 10,000 crowns. Large as that is, what makes you worth an earldom?
Oof. Yeah, no kidding.
Buggering the king himself, suggested Larn. That's enough of that, said Horst. Guard your tongue better, Baldur, or we'll end up in irons. And Roran, don't draw attention to yourself again. With a reward like that, people are bound to be watching strangers for anyone who matches your description. Running her hand through his hair, Horst pulled up his belt and said, Right, we all have jobs to do. Return here at noon to report on your progress.
I was going to say, so I worked with an English girl, and she said that a bugger is somebody who has sex in the butt. And and so every time I hear like bugger or like
so
buggery,
like when he said buggering the king,
like butt
fucking
fucking the king
himself. Yeah, that'll definitely get you an earldom. With that, the party split into three. Darman, Larn, and Hammond set out together to purchase food for the villagers, both to meet present needs and to sustain them through the next stage of their journey. Gertrude, as she had told the guard, went to replenish her stock of herbs, unguents, and tinctures. And Roran, Horst, and Baldur headed down the sloping streets to the docks, where they hoped to charter a ship that could transport the villagers to Serta or, at the very least, Tirm. When they reached the weathered boardwalk that covered the beach, Roran halted and stared out at the ocean, which was gray from low clouds and dotted with white caps from erratic wind. He had never imagined that the horizon could be so perfectly flat. The hollow boom of water knocking against the piles beneath his feet made it feel as if he stood upon the surface of a huge drum. The odor of fish, fresh, gutted, and rotting, overwhelmed every other smell. Glancing from Roran to Baldur, who was likewise entranced, Horst said, Quite a sight, isn't it? Aye, said Roran. Makes you feel rather small, doesn't it? Aye, said Baldur. Horst nodded. Remember when I first saw the ocean, it had a similar effect on me. When was that? Asked Roran. In addition to the flocks of seagulls whirling over the cove, he noticed an odd type of bird perched upon the piers. The animal had an ungainly body with a striped beak that it kept tucked against its breast like a pompous old man, a white head and neck, and a sooty torso.
A seagull?
One of the birds lifted its back, revealing a leathery pouch from underneath.
A pelican?
I have no idea what the fuck kind of bird that is.
Oh, I guess I don't really have straight beaks. I don't know.
A stork? One of those fucking pelican. Pelicans are the ones that have the big old gold.
Yeah, as soon as you
Okay.
said leathery pouch, I figured it was that big, like,
Oh, okay.
thing.
Bartram, the smith who came before me, said Horst, died when I was 15, a year before the end of my apprenticeship. I had to find a smith who was willing to finish another man's work, so I traveled to Cunon, which is built along the North Sea. There I met Kelton, a vile old man, but good at what he did. He agreed to teach me. Horst laughed. By the time we were done, I wasn't sure if I should thank him or curse him. Thank him, I should think, said Baldur. You never would have married Mother otherwise. Roran scowled as he studied the waterfront. There aren't many ships, he observed. 2 craft were berthed at the south end of the port, and a third at the opposite side, with nothing but fishing boats and dinghies in between. Of the southern pair, one had a broken mast. Roran had no experience with ships, but to him, none of the vessels appeared large enough to carry almost 300 passengers.
Holy bajolies.
Going from one ship to the next, Roran, Horst, and Baldur soon discovered that they were all otherwise engaged. It would take a month or more to repair the ship with the broken mast. The vessel beside it, the Wave Runner, was rigged with leather sails and was about to venture north to the treacherous islands where the Seether plant grew. And the Albatross, the last ship, had just arrived from the distant Feinster and was getting its seams recocked before departing with its cargo of wool. A dock worker laughed at Horst's questions. You're too late and too early at the same time. Most of the spring ships came and left 2 or 3 weeks ago. And another month, the northwesters will start gusting, and then the seal and walrus hunters will return, and we'll get ships from Tyrim and the rest of the Empire to take the hides, meat, and oil. Then you might have a chance of hiring a captain with an empty hold. Meanwhile, we don't see much more traffic than this. Desperate, Roran asked, is there no other way to get goods from here to Tyrim? It doesn't have to be fast or comfortable. Well, said the man, hefting the box on his shoulder, if it doesn't have to be fast and you're only going to Tyrim, then you might try Clovis over there. He pointed to a line of sheds that floated between 2 piers where boats could be stored. He owns some barges and he ships grain on in the fall. The rest of the year, Clovis fishes for a living, like most everybody in Narda. Then he frowned. What kind of goods you have? The sheep have already been shorn and no crops are in as of yet. This and that, said Horst. He tossed the man a copper. The dock worker pocketed it with a wink and a nudge. Right you are, sir. This and that. I know a dodge when I see one, but no need to fear old Ulrich. Mum's the word it is. But seeing you then, sir, he strolled off whistling. As it turned out, Clovis was absent from the docks. After getting directions, it took them a half hour to walk to his house on the other side of Narda, where they found Clovis planting iris bulbs along the path to his front door. He was a stout man, with sunburned cheeks and a salt and pepper beard. An additional hour passed before they could convince the mariner that they were really interested in his barges, despite the season, and then trooped back to the sheds, which he unlocked to reveal 3 identical barges, the Marybelle, Idaline, and Red Boar. Each barge was 70 feet long, 20 feet wide, and painted rust red. They had open holds that could be covered with tarpaulins, a mast that could be erected in the center for a single square sail, and a block of above-decks cabin at the rear, or aft, as Clovis called it, of the craft. Their draft be deeper than that of inland scow, explained Clovis, so you needn't fear them capsizing in rough weather, though you do well to avoid being caught in a real tempest. These barges aren't meant for the open sea. They're meant to stay within sight of land, and now be the worst time to launch them. By my honor, we've had nothing but thunderstorms every afternoon for a month. Do you have crews for all 3? Asked Roran. Well now, see there's a problem. Most of my men I employ left a few weeks ago to hunt seals, as they're wont to do. Since I need them only after the harvest, they're free to come and go as they please for the rest of the year. I'm sure you fine gentlemen understand my position. Clovis tried to smile, then glanced between Roran, Horst, and Baldur as if uncertain whom to address. Roran walked the length of the Edaline?
Sure.
Edeline?
Yeah, I would say that Edaline.
Roran walked the length of the Edaline, examining it for damage. The barge looked old, but the wood was sound and the paint was fresh. If we replaced the missing men in your crews, how much would it cost to go to Tyrim with all 3 barges? That depends, said Clovis. The sailors earn 15 coppers per day, plus as much good food as they can eat, and a dram of whiskey besides. What your men earn, be your own business. I won't put them on my payroll. Normally we also hire guards for each barge, but they're off hunting, yes, said Roran. We'll provide guards as well. The knob in Clovis's tanned throat jumped as he swallowed. That'd be more than reasonable. So it would. In addition to the crew's wages, I charge a fee of 200 crowns, plus recompense. God damn it. What did we figure out this word
I think
was?
it's recompense.
That's what I said, right? Plus recompense for any damage to the barge. I charge a fee of 200 crowns, plus recompense for any damage to the barges on account of your men, plus, as both owner and captain, 12% of the total profit from sale of the cargo. Our trip will have no profit. That, more than anything, seemed to unnerve Clovis. He rubbed the dimple in his chin with his left thumb, began to talk twice, stopped, then finally said, If that be the case, another 400 crowns upon completion of the voyage. What, if I may make so bold as to inquire, do you wish to transport? We frighten him, thought Roran. Livestock, be it sheep, cattle, horses, goats, oxen. Our herds contain an assortment of animals. And why do you want to take them to Tyrim? We have our reasons. Roran almost smiled at Clovis's confusion. Would you consider sailing past Tyrim? No. Tyrim's my limit. It is. I don't know the waters beyond, nor would I want to be gone any longer from my wife and daughter. When could you be ready? Clovis hesitated and executed 2 little steps. Mayhap 5 or 6 days. No, you better make it a week. I have affairs that I must attend to before departing. We'd pay an additional 10 crowns to leave day after tomorrow. I don't. 12 crowns. Day after tomorrow it is, vowed Clovis. One way or another, I'll be ready by then. Trailing his hand along the barge's gunwale, Aurora nodded without looking back at Clovis and said, May I have a minute alone to confer with my associates? As you wish, sir. I'll just go for a turn about the docks until you're done. Clovis hurried to the door. Just as he exited the shed, he said, I'm sorry, but what be your name again? I fear I missed it earlier and my memory can be something dreadful. Stronghammer.